Hello, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundel, and my Virgo full moon in-depth presentation. This occurs on the 9th of March 2020 at 5:47 p.m. at Greenwich Mean Time. So this sees the moon here in the sign of Virgo and obviously opposite the sun. But in this particular chart, we can see that the moon is in the first house, which is brilliant, really, because that's very much about our reality, our instant reality. And the sun in Pisces is in the seventh house, how we interact and relate to others. So what I want to do is obviously understand the astrology, the astronomy behind the event itself, and then look at this chart so that we get an idea of what the relationship is with the other planetary influences on this event, which will give us a backdrop for the following 2 weeks to fit in with the full moon itself. But some people would argue that the analysis could give us a connection through to when we have the next full moon. Now, this full moon is known as a worm moon, because it's the springtime, and traditionally this was a time when the earth was breaking down and the worm could start to get busy in order for us to start planting. And of course that's from a northern hemisphere perspective. This is also a supermoon, the first of 3 this year that are going to occur this month, and also April and May. This is where the moon is closer to us by about 7 degrees. We get a perigee and can seem a lot brighter. Now, the significance of the supermoon in terms of the more physical effects upon us, I guess, depends really on your particular way of looking at astrology, or looking at full and new moons more from a spiritual viewpoint. But certainly from my viewpoint, a Virgo full moon is about practicality. It's about the container that we want to fit our emotions and ideas and activities within, because it gives it some kind of framework, some kind of structure, some kind of tangible organization. So that's very Virgoan. And on the other side of the heavens, following on from the glorious new moon that we had on the 23rd of February in Pisces, which of course forged that wonderful talent triangle to both Uranus and also Mars, which really gave us an encouragement when we were visualizing what we wanted to achieve in the following month. It was really giving us a lot of impetus and desire to be perhaps a little bit more on the front foot and proactive, more than would normally be the case with a Pisces new moon, which of course Pisces energy is very, very movable, very gassy. It's not always very definable. So I feel that when we look at this particular full moon, anything that we did manifest on the back of that new moon, we need to be now thinking about how it's coming to fruition or not. Now, one of the things that Virgo energy gives us encouragement about is helping others. It's very much of being of service. It's also finding ways that we feel that we enjoy whatever sacrifices we make, so there's something that we get personal satisfaction from. So it's not just given in a more sacrificing way because that's the right thing to do. It needs to be in balance with our bodies. So I think Neptune on the sun, as it is 18 degrees conjunct the sun, we've also got the part of fortune there. This makes this a very mystical set of influences. 2 are on the 6th house to do with the body, the sun's on the 7th house to do with our competitive environment, how we interact with people, our relationships, and also more traditionally in astrology, our known enemies, so the people we know we have to take on and interact with. That could be awkward people we work with, it could be people that we have to deal with, but we kind of know who these challenging people can be. So that's all that Pisces energy, which is very perceptive, very spiritual potentially, but how has it been framed since that particular new moon which occurred on the 23rd? And that's the question that the Virgo full moon is asking us. But one of the things that we must guard against, of course, is that we've not set our intentions so strongly and so high that any goals or ambitions or hopes that we have, if we haven't manifested them yet, that we're very self-critical about it. And Virgo energy can be very much about understanding the absolute finer detail, which is one of its great strengths. But we don't want to be examining the finer detail with not appreciating the big picture. So I do feel that the more psychological energy that comes from Pisces can be balanced by the more practical energies of Virgo. We could say the Pisces energy is about our emotion. We could say the moon energy is about our bodies. So if we want to get busy, especially at this chart, raised in England at this time, we can see the moon is right on the ascendant. So this gives us a very Virgoan kind of energy for us folk here in the UK. Obviously, other astrologers may set this up in different places in the world, which would give a different ascendant. But that's what I'm getting here. So for me, this is very much about trying to make sure that all the ideas that we had, however noble they were, however goodly, however worthy, that they can actually be shaped into something that is actually going to be something that's going to last, is tangible, and we can fit into our world in a practical way, because this is earth energy. But that moon energy there can, as I said just now, see us being a bit self-critical, or perhaps being disappointed with ourselves because it isn't quite as perfect as we would like. And one of the things that can feel a bit out of tandem, I feel, on the back of this particular full moon, if we look beyond just seeing it as a full moon in Virgo, and I do think that for the most part people do just concentrate very narrowly on the position of the full moon, the new moon, and the signs they're in. They don't necessarily take into account the big picture like this. And I think when you get moon opposite Neptune, you can get a lot of distortion and unreality. So one of the things here is, one of the sayings that comes up for me on this particular full moon would be, let's make sure that fact isn't stranger than fiction, because there is an opportunity for it to be precisely that. And obviously the moon opposite the sun means it's harder for us to integrate the soul energies we have through the sun and our desire against the more receptive emotional and female energies that come through the moon. So if we're too idealistic, the moon's asking us to get on the program, to get real. If, however, we're looking at our bodies, for example, in a purely practical way and thinking, why have I got all these aches and pains? I'm not happy about this, but not thinking, well, what else is going on within us? Is there any emotional history that we've not really tackled? Are there still active strands of unresolved emotions that we do need to give ourselves permission to be vulnerable and sensitive and bring in all this Pisces energy? We can't live in a purely physical sphere, the moon in Virgo, but nor can we live in a purely spiritual, ethereal energy of Pisces. And I think Neptune here is something we all really will need to work at with this. So if you do feel drained, Neptune on the sun can definitely lower vitality. Neptune in the 6th house is the body. So if you feel drained, I think the Virgo moon is a great time to get practical about how we can improve things. So that means better nutrition, more exercise, making sure that we try and cook things more from scratch, reduce all processed foods. And I have a thing about vegan food. I really respect veganism. I was a very devout vegetarian from the age of 15. But I do think the food manufacturing industry has kind of got in on veganism a bit and seen it as a way to make money and provide services to people that people want, which is good. And I don't think the odd processed meal will do anyone too much harm. But a lot of these meals are marketed as health meals, but are so highly processed that they're breaking down all the goodness of the original food within them. So if you are a vegan, this would be a fine time to create the time for yourself, to be a bit more organised, which is Virgo energy, to feed your soul as well as your body by making things from scratch, and rather than just relying on what's ready-made. So for all of us, nutrition, something I feel really passionate about, because I think I ended up getting really quite ill due to lack of choline, a lack of B12, a lack of proper fats. Yes, your iron can be okay, but it's the output from the iron from your red blood cells and how that gives you energy. And if you don't have these things right, you can end up with pernicious exhaustion, which is exactly what happened to me. So a Virgo full moon is a good time to challenge ourselves a little bit about the practicalities in our life we're not really getting with. So if we're being too idealistic about, it's wonderful to think of animal welfare, so endorse that, or the environment, absolutely right as well. So this is all the idealism, but we need to bond with this, the practicality. So I really encourage everyone who really cares about the planet and animals, like all vegans clearly do. You know, so much respect for you, but don't be too seduced by all these ready meals. I really feel strongly about this. This is me speaking my truth. Saturn on the Sun, so I hope it doesn't offend anyone. That is not my intent. Now there are some glorious things with this chart, because the moon's forging a beautiful link with Mars. So we get that on the new moon, we had that wonderful sextile with the Sun in Pisces. Now we've got a 4-degree gap between Mars and also the moon. So the moon's how we feel it, how we emote it, and Mars is how we action it. So moon in the first house, Mars in the fourth house, home, emotion, family. But also just by 4 degrees we have Jupiter on a great angle, a wonderful trine with the moon. So that gives us a sense of optimism. And it's a bit broader, but we've got on 5 degrees, we've got Jupiter conjunct Pluto, but Pluto is also in a trine with the moon in Virgo. So this all gives us an opportunity to transform in a very positive way. Saturn's beginning to really creep away from Pluto. It's now 4 degrees. I usually take 3 degrees into account. Now if this was a natal chart, absolutely an astrologer would see Saturn and Pluto as being conjunct. It's a very important alliance. But for me, in these kind of videos where I think precision is really important, we want to be as precise as possible. So all this earth energy can be very good for this moon. It's very supportive and very enabling for the moon's aims, which really is to bring us to consciousness around the need for organisation, the need for purity, the need to look after our bodies, the need to be practical, the need to get tangible results, the need to be of service to others, but in a way that gives us a degree of self-satisfaction, not being so self-sacrificing that we're ending up being potentially martyrs, which is possible with Neptune on the Sun, giving too much. So think about your boundaries, reinforce your boundaries between what's good for you, works for you, but also you can help others. And at the same time, if you are a very self-sacrificing person and find it very difficult to say no, if there is someone who's very needy, who really, if you think about the relationship, is it becoming all about their needs and never about acknowledging the gift of your care, it's time to really reinforce those boundaries. If you do need to be a bit stricter with someone about a relationship, Saturn is forging a square with the moon and with Venus and also with Uranus. Now you can see these two are in conjunction, which started on the 5th of March. It's glorious if you're in a relationship and you want to bring a bit more spark and unpredictability and spontaneity. It's wonderful for that. But because Saturn's so late, it is a square. They are obviously all three in Earth signs. It's not disassociate, but it may as well be, because essentially this is so late. It's actually near to moving into Aquarius, where obviously the square would be more obvious, but there is a square there. It's a bit broader, 7 degrees on Venus and about 6 degrees on Uranus. So that can create a degree of frustration and also stress if Saturn conjunct Saturn, I beg your pardon, square Uranus can definitely create stress if we're locked into something which is not giving us much pleasure. So if there's a relationship of any kind whatsoever where we're giving, whether it's a professional relationship, a relationship with a colleague, a relationship with a friend, a relationship with a client, a family member, or a partner, if it's not a fair share, if it's not an equal exchange, a fair exchange, I think Uranus is pushing with its angle to Saturn and also on Venus to reform it, and to reform it quickly. And if that doesn't happen, it can cause a degree of tension. Now, we do have a lovely semi-sextile between Mercury and also Saturn, Mercury in Aquarius. So if we do need to talk to anyone about anything, that's very helpful if we need to dive down into this pool of swirling misty energy in Neptune, which can distort, change, erode, not necessarily great for clarity and facts and figures. I think Mercury being in that semi-sextile with Saturn certainly helps. So that pretty well completes my forecast for this particular period. So we're talking about this glorious full moon in Virgo, which is asking us to check out the intentions we made on that new moon, which occurred on the 23rd of February. Were we too idealistic? If so, don't beat yourself up about it. Just reset and recalibrate and realign to get a better balance between the idealism of all these energies and the practicality of Virgo. But we don't need to get so much into Virgo that it's all about the details. It gets picky, irritable and brittle, that we then lose our relationship to the compassion and kindness that can come from these energies. And we have got a glorious link between Jupiter and the moon. In fact, we've also got Jupiter and the sun, which can give us a sense of confidence and how we can change things for the better. And Mars is also pitching up again to give us energy and drive to try to make any changes we wish to make. So it's about a realignment. But if you are someone who has any physical ailments, but you find it more difficult to embrace vulnerabilities, your own, to come to terms with those things, which can be very difficult for men particularly. I've been through this whole journey. Then don't be too hard on yourself if that's the case. Just accept, as all human beings, we do have challenges, and basically astrology is like a continuing nudge to try for all of us to stay in balance. Now, I'm really grateful for you staying to this part of the forecast, and I'd be absolutely thrilled if you saw the link beneath this video, because you can join up for free to my monthly magazine and mail outs that I do. 17,000 people take part in that, of subscribers, and I do send out, I feel, really good quality journalism, astrojournalism. I don't bombard people with stuff. I might send the same article a couple of times, but also underneath this video you can see how this full moon is going to impact on your zodiac sign by clicking on the link and going to my Astro blog. And lastly, if you'd like a one-to-one personal consultation with me, or you'd like to order your year ahead forecast, written forecast and character analysis, again, please see the link beneath this video. It's been an absolute honour being with you. Please sub, like or comment. For now, good luck and goodbye.